that you turn to, someone you can rely on, closer each day, home and away.
Welcome to Home and Away, a Tottenham Hotspur podcast hosted by myself, Graham Spice, and Glen, where we discuss all things Tottenham Hotspur with both a match-attending and international supporters view. Glen, are you good?
I'm good. We'll get to our guests in a moment, but love is in the air. It's Valentine's Day here already. I know you've just ticked over Valentine's Day, Glenn, because it's just after midnight for you, but our guests are the day before Valentine's Day, so that'll be a clue as to where they are. But I'm doing well, mate. How are you going?
I have a card ready to go.
Oh, all right. Good work. How are you, Graham? Are you well?
I'm okay. Had a bit of a frantic week at work. A good thing has been, this is the first week since about the middle of December, maybe even earlier than that we haven't had 2 games a week to do a podcast about. And I'm so pleased because it become quite a grind.
Oh, it did. I was like, oh shit, need to do another podcast.
Especially when there's been, the good news has been hard to come by, right? It's been a tough few months.
Indeed. And for our listeners, if you can hear an angle grinder / door, I apologise. I'm getting my floors redone, so there's a bit of noise around me and I'm in my kitchen. But without further ado, over to our guest who I'd like to introduce. So we've got Ken and Yoon from Colorado Spurs, who I had the pleasure of spending many hours of watching Tottenham with. And I'll let you guys share the story, but Ken and Yoon together, like love was blossomed from your support of Tottenham. Or maybe it was just modern Tottenham. But how are you guys? Good to have you on.
Really good. Yeah.
Good, but February, at least here, it's dreary and I always want to quit everything. So I have to remind myself every year that it's cyclical and it will pass. And so this dark period of Spurs too will pass.
Yeah, I agree. We often experience in Colorado, which you guys probably know, it can be cold and hot at the same time. And it makes sense, but it doesn't. But that was right now.
Well, I do remember one day being there where it was like they'd had 4 inches of snow, woke up to 4 inches of snow, and by mid-afternoon it was like 23 degrees or something. It was Celsius.
Sure.
Fahrenheit.
Celsius.
But I was like, what the hell is this place? It was insane. They had all the weather.
Yeah, that's Colorado. To be honest, Melbourne is quite similar to that. We don't get snow, but yes, Melbourne can be quite similar to that. To give you context, we had 37 degrees Celsius yesterday, and then by Saturday it's going to be a high of 16, which is really quite bizarre for this time of year. This is our height of summer. So, yeah, but that's Melbourne. Anyway, enough about weather. My best impression of Michael Fish for our listeners. If you don't know who that is, feel free to get in touch. I'll let you know.
If you don't know who that is, you're probably not as old as we are.
Yeah. So, Yoon and Ken, a bit about you. I guess, why Spurs? I've mentioned that Spurs maybe blossomed a bit of a love, but over to you guys. Why Tottenham? Maybe some first experiences. I think you met when we were watching Spurs, but over to you guys. I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, so I think I should begin by saying that I personally became a Spurs fan 2010. Right around, I actually wrote a little post this morning on the Tottenham Reddit page because someone was asking about where people are in the world and why they're Spurs fans. And I think around 2010 was the time that Fox Sports picked up the Premier League. And so it just became more available. I was really interested in picking it up. And I mean, we the theme of romance like there was such a draw from culture and the chanting and just it was so new and fresh. And at the time, Tottenham were just getting into, I believe they had just gotten into the Champions League. In fact, I think that Bale had scored 3 at Inter.
Ah, okay, yes.
Like just before I started paying attention.
That infamous game where this is the first time I've ever done this as a Spurs fan, and I'll never do it again. I left the pub at half time in disgrace. And I was so annoyed because we were I think it was 4-0, wasn't it? And I missed the hat trick. And I messaged my best mate back home. I go, you never guess what I did. And he goes, you left at half time, didn't you? Yeah.
Didn't the keeper get sent off in the first half? Something happened in that game.
I think, was it Crouch that got sent off, or was that against Real Madrid? I can't remember. I do remember there being a sending off, and I think we lost Genus to an injury, like in the warm-up or something.
That all sounds
no great loss.
And I remember the early days. Like it's been more than 10 years now, like almost 15 years, and which like I've never seen them live, but like spending so much time with them. I said on this post earlier that I spent when I was I used to wait tables, and there was times when I would I should have been checking on my tables, but I was watching Spurs play in the morning, or there was I was listening to us during the I think it was pre-Poch era, when I was listening to Europa League games on the FootMob app.
Yeah.
When I could have been helping set up a friend's wedding. It's just like I've all these moments in the past 15 years that are really special to me, and I'm all in, with Spurs. And if it's just been, there's so many memories. It's been a long journey, but it's like, even this dark period that we're in now, I really think that there's good things to come with what's happening now.
Well, I hope so. We'll get into that in a bit on like the Villa game and stuff, which we'll cover, and then looking ahead to Man United. But Yoon, why Spurs for you? And I am right. You did meet Ken at Colorado Spurs, didn't you? I'm not making that up.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And my sort of coming into this Spurs family was much later. So I grew up in the United States, but trying to watch soccer without cable TV. So, yep. So for me, it was all on the Spanish language channel. So I never really had access to English Premier League until much later. But I do remember loving watching South Korea play with my dad, World Cup, whatever I could catch, I would. And then my love of soccer really took shape when New Order put out World in Motion, because
yes, one of my favorites. Yes. Yeah.
All about Britpop and new wave, and then that came out. I was like, okay, I'm definitely hooked. So, but for Spurs, it wasn't until the 2016-2017 season. That's when I met you, Glen. That's when I met Kenneth, and it was definitely Sunny.
Of course.
That drew. It was Pochettino era. It was just felt so intimate and real, and it was when everyone had the individualized handshakes, and it just felt so, like I said, I would say before, he built a squad, he didn't buy one, and it just really felt genuine. But that was my first season supporting Spurs, and we didn't buy players, like we didn't spend money. So when we did start changing things up, it felt like so personal, where I'm like, why did
how dare you? Yeah.
Right.
How dare you? The first thing I did was, where do the Spurs supporters meet? And within a week or two, I was there at Esther's, for those who know, watching the games in the morning. And we're 7 hours behind here, so it's always 5 a.m. to...
You love those Saturday lunchtime kickoffs?
Yeah.
The 5:30 a.m. ones.
And it's quite funny, because when I was back in the States in September for a visit, I watched a few games, and it was so lovely to have them on at like a sociable hour. Because here, like, if it's a massive game, which unfortunately we're not getting many of them these days, I'll probably watch it live regardless of time. But generally speaking, you're looking at the best possible kickoff time for me is 9:30 p.m. and that's always early season or late season because of the time change between England and Australia. And then European games at the moment are 7 a.m., which is nice, or cup games, now out of cups. But most of them are 2 in the morning on the weekends, 3 in the morning, 4 a.m. on a Monday. So I'm just very much, phone goes into airplane mode and I just watch the replay knowing absolutely nothing. So as your kind of affinity with Spurs has grown, and it's been a few years now, do you still frequent Esther's as much as you once did, or is it more at home with a cup of coffee and breakfast?
There is something special about watching with fellow supporters. You know, Prudence Daniels, who led Colorado Spurs after you left. You passed the torch on to her. So we would go together. I still enjoy that, but I think there's something that I also love of just like at home in my own little world at 5:00 in the morning with a cup of coffee. And I think we've been doing that more lately.
Yeah, we definitely have been homebodies, and in the wintertime especially when there's many factors. Current form is a big one, and it's just like, but I've had so many great memories with other Tottenham fans, including I was an Uber driver at the time when Lucas Moura put the third one past Ajax.
Were you driving an Uber at the time?
No, I had my own schedule, so I took off that day so that I could sit front row at Esther's and just, this isn't going our way. And then all of a sudden I was hugging strangers and just jumping around.
I'm gonna embarrass myself here, but I'll tell it anyway. So that goal, and still when I'm feeling a bit low, I'll just go back and watch the mini match or that particular goal, because the game kicked off against Ajax here. It was a 5 a.m. kickoff. So I rolled out of bed at like 4:30, put it on. Let's just say I wasn't fully dressed for the day and leave it at that. But I decided to FaceTime Graham after we'd won. And then I shared with him, I'm just in my underwear.
I was in a bar in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Unfortunately not at the game. I was there for work, but I was watching in a room full of Ajax supporters. So there was one other English guy there, and he was an Arsenal fan. So it was not a good crowd to be watching it with, but I got the final laugh at the end. And I fell over a sofa because I was running around like an idiot celebrating.
Well, I love that we all have different, like, specific memories of where we were in particular matches. So I was teaching, so I'm an English teacher, high school English teacher, and it was after our AP exams. So all the hard work was done. I put the game on the big screen in my classroom, and I just made a bunch of Tottenham supporters out of some of my students. But I remember when Moura scored, and I can yell very loudly when I'm excited, and I just had this like guttural like yell, and my students were so shocked that the sound came.
Yeah, I had similar feedback from my wife, Lindsay. She said you sounded inhuman, and then she said to me, all you kept yelling was, "This doesn't happen to us. This doesn't happen to us. This doesn't happen to us." but yeah,
like getting back to the romance of Spurs, like that's. I mean, I'm sure every club has its own, lore and things that have happened and things that people hold on to, but I just don't regret being a Spurs fan. Like, I think there's just so much wonderful, like, even with like, there's so like the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
But it's just been amazing. And from my time, early on, just having the pleasure of watching a generational talent like Bale, just unreal. Like you go back and watch some of the goals that he scored, and yeah, they're amazing. But in the moment, like it's like superhuman. It's like another level. And then
it's a beautiful club to support for many, many reasons, and even in the tough times, which we'll get to in a minute on terms of the Villa game. But as Graham and the recent episode we finished, I've kind of said, Tottenham could be League Two. It wouldn't matter to me. I still have the same love for them. And I don't think we ever will be, by the way. But and times are shit right now, but I think it will make it all the sweeter when we finally do turn a bit at the corner. And on that, Graham, getting to the Villa game, and Yoon and Ken, we'll come to you in a moment to get your kind of views and how you watched it. But Graham, pretty disappointing. I mean, disappointing in the sense I didn't watch it live. It was a 4:25 a.m. kickoff. And funnily enough, I woke at 4:15 a.m. I just opened my eyes, I looked at my watch, and I was like, should I get up and watch it? And I'm so glad I didn't, because we were 1-0 down pretty quickly. So I watched it. I put it on at about 7 a.m. my time. But, I mean, we rolled the red carpet out for the first goal in midfield, too easy, and then the error by Kinski didn't help. just the first half, we just didn't seem to lay much of the glove and had no real midfield. And off the back of the Liverpool game, again, just a major disappointment. But Graham, you watched it live, right? You enjoyed or not enjoyed every moment of it?
I watched it. Yeah, it was poor again. I just think we've just run out of gas. Everyone's dead on their feet. I see anything I can put it down to now because we know that these players, they're not bad players, and I don't think the coaching or the system is necessarily the problem anymore. I've kind of just some of the, I mean, like Pedro Porro's played the most minutes of any player in any league, any major league in Europe already this season. So
and I think
that's your floor, is it? I take it.
Yeah, you can hear my floor. And Kulusevski has played like the equivalent of like a whole season
already,
in February. Yeah, which is just nuts. But look, the one plus, I suppose, Matthias Tell got on the score sheet, which was nice to see, a nice tidy finish.
Good goal, well taken goal, yeah.
Really well taken goal. But then I was frustrated by how he was being used, playing centrally. But
well, that's the other weird thing. Like, we all know how ineffective Son has been down the middle. Why? I don't understand. Some weird decisions, I think, with the way we set up. But we looked much better with Tell down the middle, and I think in the second half he brought Moore off, and I didn't think Mikey Moore was having that bad a game, and put Basuma on, which maybe he felt he needed. Maybe he felt he needed more players in the middle of the park or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Go ahead, Ken. Ken, did you both watch it live? It would have been, what, a Sunday, like probably mid-morning for you guys?
Go ahead.
It was a little earlier. Go ahead.
We woke up for it. I think both of us had missed the previous disaster.
Yeah, because we were working.
We were working. And I had win, lose, or draw. We're going to watch the Villa game. It's been a while. I need to reconnect with this team. We just signed Tell, and I just wanted to get my eyes on the new players. And the Kinski mistake. I just remember looking over at Yoon, and she was just like, just like the seething, like, what's going on? Here we go again. But I said to her afterwards, every player that we get back every first team player that we get back is better decision making. It's a second ball won. It's a pass found. It's a goal scored. And I really think that, I don't know, I'm just excited to see what's to come, assuming we can keep people fit.
So it sounds like you watched together, right? So we were 1-0 down after what? Just over a minute. So
yeah.
You had that stinking feeling out the gate then. Here we go again. Which I did too.
And we were joking, like, anytime one of our players went down, we're like, oh, he's going to be out for, 3 to 5 months. Like, oh, here's another injury. Like, as much as the heartbreak, we're always going to support our Spurs. So
I thought it was quite funny. I think it was today, the King did a tour of the Tottenham Stadium. And the headline was King tours Tottenham Stadium. Someone put underneath it, and this will be out for 6 months with a hamstring injury.
So true.
I thought that was very good. But yeah, I just feel we don't have a lot of creativity in the team at the moment. I think we're missing an on-form Maddison, and I say that because he's been in and out of form this season, where he seems to have only turned it on 2 or 3 times, really. We could really do with someone who's, when we're really struggling against teams that can sort of unlock a team. And I think we really need those players back. And I think there's good news for the game on Sunday, that we should have 3 or 4 players back for that.
Well, and on that, I think that I've had a roller coaster with my views on Ange in terms of really like him, wanting to succeed. I think he's, to not stereotype, but he's your typical Aussie, like in terms of very blunt, to the point. He reminds me of like a client I would have. But I kind of go back and forth, and I'm currently in the camp of, I think he made a good point in the press night. He seemed really irritated, which you can understand why, but when Plymouth had beaten Liverpool, and he said, how many changes did they make? I think it was 10 changes. And he said, and there you go. They lost the game. Now, what he's doing is he's pinning everything on those players coming back. So it has to improve, right? Because if it doesn't, then you're looking at it and you're going, well, hold about, then we do have a problem. So maybe it will. But go ahead, Ken. I think you had a view there, mate.
No, I was just going to say, like, that's absolutely right. I think a lot of the cult of Postecoglou is based around that. We want this system to succeed. We want to see attacking, flashy football at Spurs. And we have to give, it's so hard this day and age to give anyone time to think about the future, to endure a period like this. But I think that there's a sect that really wants to see that happen. And I think you're absolutely right. I think it is kind of pinned on players coming back and doing well. If Van de Ven comes back and pulls up the second game back or sooner, then it's like, what's going to happen? And we'll just have to see. I think that he's earned that time, and I think that's what we're seeing right now. And I also don't know what anybody else wants right now. Like, I think the point is made that, like, if whoever comes into the club right now, whether it be Mason or Pochettino, what are they going to do with this decimate?
And Graham said that over the past couple of months as well. It's like, I don't know that there's anyone A, available, or B, that would maybe want it, or C, that we would want, that are going to come in and do a great deal different. So you may as well just leave it alone. Yoon, where do you sit on Ange as an entity, his future, the injuries that we've had? Like, do you see it a little differently, or are you in that similar camp of just wanting it to succeed and having sympathy for him?
I want it to succeed. I think I'm like you, Graham, where I kind of vacillate between, like, okay, like, we're behind Ange, and then being like, oh, is this working? Like, even if we get our players back, is this going to work now?
I think it's healthy to be critical sometimes, right? I don't think we should blindly follow a manager. If there are questions to be asked, I think we should ask them. And I think my worry is with him, and I really wanted to succeed. I like when the football is right, it is great, it's breathtaking, it's great football to watch, but that hasn't happened very often. I think consistently we only did it for those first 10 games last season. This season we've done it like once every 10 games or something, and that's the thing that worries me. Even before we started getting injuries this season, we were drawing and losing games that we should be winning, like the Ipswich game, or even the draw at Leicester at the beginning of the season. And we had full squads for those games. So it wasn't that, for me, those were frailties in the system that time, rather than players being out. So my worry is we're going to give him time to get all the players back, but then he really has to deliver with those once he has those players. He doesn't have any excuses then. Then it is literally all on him.
With the time, of course, you want to invest and let him actually build what he envisions, but there's something to be said about pivoting when you need to pivot. And if you don't, then I think that's part of the smarts of being a manager, is knowing when to pivot. And so
I don't think he ever will. He's the most stubborn human being on the planet, I think. He will only ever do it his way, and he'll live or die by that, I think. I just think that's the way he is.
And this is classic Spurs, right? It's like, if we actually do sort it out, get our players back, I'm almost looking now at the Europa League as almost like the way I look at England in major tournaments, where I'm like, they come around every couple of years and you just put everything you can into it. And I think that's what we're going to do. Like, we've been very careful with Romero and Van der Ven. We're just not risking them, and other players to come back. I just think we're looking at that competition and saying, hang about, we're in the last 16, we're 2 games from a major European quarterfinal, and then you get more players back, and then you're like, bloody hell, we could find our way into a European final. How classic of Spurs would that be, to have almost the worst possible season, but the greatest?
Yeah. And every time that there's a sniff of a trophy or silverware, there's this thing, at least in my mind as a Spurs fan, where I'm like, can we get it over the line? Can we get it over the line? I don't know if you guys are tennis fans at all, but I watched I watched a classic match between Federer and Kyrgios recently, and it was an incredible match until the third set tiebreak, and Kyrgios just couldn't get over the line. Federer won, and the heartbreak on his face. And I'm wondering, like, in that moment when all is on the line in a final, the subtleties of the mentality. Can Postecoglou remedy that? And that's I think that's the part of his philosophy that I'm all in on. Like, can we bulldoze through the bullshit of like, oh, we're serial losers or whatever it is? Can he expunge that?
He needs the players to be as committed to the way he wants to play as he is. And at the moment, I think they aren't. I think they're struggling. Funny you should say about Nick Kyrgios. You know, he's a Spurs fan, right?
Is he? Oh,
yeah,
beautiful.
He's a Spurs fan. Yeah.
So he said about the mentality. He's got that down pat.
But on a happier note, if we wanted to loop back to how we met.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, please do.
Because I don't think we fully covered that.
Sure.
We did meet at Esther's, and yeah, it was just it just felt like, I don't know. We were friends first. We were soccer buddies first, right? Like, we watched together at Esther's, and then we had a short stint of playing rec league soccer together.
Yes.
Glen, you also played, right, with us. So it was more of an organic sort of like connection where it wasn't this fast, we're going to get together. We've actually known each other since 2017.
8 years.
And then Spurs kept us together, and then we went our separate ways, came back together, and then
Yoon was always on my radar.
We stayed in each other's radar.
And she wasn't always available. I think she was married.
I was.
If I remember.
It was still 2016, and then 2017. Yeah, it was officially over because, you know, things move slowly when you're untangling.
But I think after COVID times, once vaccines became like a thing, we gave it a shot again, and it was just very right.
Yeah.
So
it would be remiss of me not to assume this. So, is the big day going to have any kind of Tottenham theme to it when you tie it off?
Centered around Tottenham, but I think it would be. I don't, for lack of a better term, incorrect to not have some kind of cockerel somewhere.
Just you can do like a nice flower arrangement in the shape of the cockerel.
Yeah.
Okay. Lily white and
lily white. Yeah. Or you could or the first dance could be done to a football chant, maybe Tottenham chant.
bit of Chaz and Dave.
Yeah, Chaz and Dave. Yeah.
Not quite as romantic, but I met Glen in Esther's as well.
So what's funny with Graham is he did meet me in Esther's. At the time, I think I was running the Colorado Spurs Twitter, and he reached out, and then within about an hour or two of meeting each other, we quickly realised we're actually from practically the same hometown. And then we became quite good mates. And then Graham came over to dinner. We had a barbecue. And then we get to talking. And then he's like, I think my daughter works for your mum. And yeah, so she did at the local Marks and Spencer's. And I messaged mum. I was like, do you know Charlotte? And she's like, oh yeah. I go, I'm with her dad, like having dinner. Like really random. So yeah, good stuff. Well, great story
and your current floor fitter is from my town now.
Yeah. As I sit here, and that was complete coincidence. Yeah, very small world. Yeah, So you just never know who you're going to bump into and where. But well, good stuff. Great story. Let's hope that we have another good story with Man United approaching.
Nice segue.
Indeed. We've got some players coming back, apparently. Now, whether or not they last, and to Yun's point a moment ago, I'm sure if some of them do play, we're going to be on the edge of our seats every time they go down. Oh, he's out. He's done. No, what's happened? But it looks like Maddison, Udogie, Vicario, and I think that's it, wasn't it? And then
Odobert, I heard as well, might be back, but I don't know.
Can we see him? Can we see him?
Yeah, I have no view on him because we've not, have we? We haven't seen him at all.
He's played a handful of games, hasn't he? Not very much at all.
And I don't even recall him.
He played left and right. He's played all over the place. So.
And I don't even recall him at Burnley. Couldn't tell you a game I saw him in. But go ahead, Ken.
Like recently, like the only player recently that I've seen from the off trying to take on a man in the box. He's buddy with Tell. They're both like French.
Yeah, they've played together before, haven't they?
So that might be a thing, that came into play for him signing for Spurs. And I'm excited to see him in action. I really think that he could produce. But like I said before, like every first team player that comes back and is creative and energetic, I think is going to be a plus. Does Vicario come in?
Well, I was thinking that, actually. I'm glad you brought it up. It wasn't a muscular injury, right? It wasn't like a strain or a pull or anything. It was a fractured ankle. So unfortunately, I've got a funny story about that. I fractured my ankle once and missed a cup final for it. But so you would assume that he would come in. I don't see why you wouldn't. Like, especially off the back of Kinski. Look, I think let's call him an eccentric keeper. I wish he'd catch the ball more often.
Eccentric.
Yeah. But from a shot stopping point of view, would Vicario have not made that mistake against Villa? Maybe. So yeah, I don't see why you wouldn't start him. But Graham, where do you sit on that, mate? If he's fit, you play him, surely.
I think he plays. I just think Kinski he had a strong start, but he's got some really bad habits that he needs to be coached out of him. Like, he never catches the ball. He's always flapping at it or just pushing it out or trying to punch it. And the amount of times he's played us back into trouble by doing that, like he punched it into a dangerous area and then...
I'll probably age myself here, but a modern day Bruce Grobbelaar.
Yeah, but not as good.
Yeah, not as good, yeah.
No, wait, I guess he's still young, right? He's 22. So it's not like he's got time on his side, and let's be honest, Vicario's not without his challenges as well. There's a reason that other teams put players on him and try and unsettle him in the box. Is that his decision making for coming for balls isn't great. So, but again, shot stopping, he's top drawer. So
yeah,
I would say Vicario with more experience and probably fresh as well. I mean, let's be honest. Kinski came in and he's been in the firing line ever since. I don't think we've had a season where we've conceded so many shots like this for a long time. He's just been bombarded with shots.
Well, and also just to mention Udogie, if he does come in, even if he's on the bench, or maybe he starts, I don't know. But I tell you what that does, and I think going forward, this should be our fullbacks. I think Spence plays right back, Udogie plays left back. That's our two fullbacks. I think those are our best fullbacks in terms of getting forward, being able to recover, and actually being able to defend. I think Pedro Porro gets turned around a lot. I mean, we've covered it numerous times, but the kid that played for Tamworth who has a job at Zara turned Porro inside out. I just think Spence as a right back is the better option. And then as we get centre halves back, maybe that pushes Archie Gray into his preferred option of midfield. But Ken, your view, mate, on players returning.
Kinski, I love that he came in and immediately was in, in the fire. And you can tell that he is from what I understand, his father was a goalkeeper, and he just has that calm about him, which doesn't make sense for a player his age. And I love to see that. Vicario, and let's be fair, all goalkeepers are eccentric. Like,
yeah. You have to be a bit. You have to be a bit to be in that position. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to be mental to be the last line and to just out on your shoulders, and the way that I loved what Postecoglou instilled in players was like, it's not on you. Just take risks. And I think that's like a big thing for goalkeepers. Obviously, you have to be able to put it out of your mind. And Udogie, I have low key been a huge fan of since he came in. Just a young player. I think he doesn't get enough credit for his defensive style. He just looks like, maybe statistics say a different story, but the way he looks on the ball, the way he stands up players, I just love watching him play. I think that he maybe can advance the play more, but it's just all these things that you want to see the players, like all of the first team playing at their top level. That's all we want to see, and that's not always the case. But yeah, I'm excited for Udogie to come back. Excited for Matt. I really want to see him perform again.
And just coming back to your point on eccentric goalkeeper, I just forwarded to the group chat. That's Ryan, and he was our 5-star goalie for some time. If you zoom in on his head, he decided to clash with a 5-star goal post and make sure we didn't concede. He's an absolute nutcase. And he ended up in hospital. He was out cold for a good minute, stitches, and he hasn't been back. So that's eccentric keeping for you for sure. But so looking ahead, obviously it's an interesting fixture in the context of it's 13th versus 14th, but it's Tottenham versus Man United, which is, I don't want to sound this elitist fan, but you would argue that those positions in the league aren't befitting of either of those clubs, right? But
warranted basically performances.
100% warranted. Man United just lost at home to Crystal Palace. I'd almost prefer this was at Old Trafford. It seems to be a really easy place to go these days. But
we really beat them up there.
Yeah, we have. And we beat them at home in the cup. But I don't know how this goes. We haven't won a home Premier League game, I think, since November. Was it Villa, I think?
Yeah.
So I don't know, I get tired of predicting and not getting it right because you can't seem to predict at the moment with Spurs. We've been very poor. We are getting players.
Maybe we need to bit reverse psychology, right? We need to manifest the result by predicting the opposite.
Yeah. So I'm going to predict that they're going to come rock up and hammer us, and maybe
I can see a 3-0 Man United win.
Yeah, 3-0 Man United win, exactly. Well, before we get to predictions though, Yoon, you guys, you're going to be watching live. It's 9:30 a.m. on a Sunday for you?
Well,
4 p.m. UK kickoff, isn't it?
4:30, yeah.
So it'll be 9:30. We already have it in our minds that we'll watch, and then it'll be perfect timing because after we win or lose, we'll then head up to the mountains to check out a wedding venue.
Beautiful.
So,
nice.
It's just like perfect timing. But I also agree. I would prefer it to be at Old Trafford. I think pressure, right? It's like at home we have so much to lose and so much disappointment to spread around if we don't perform. So I don't know, but I have a lot of students who are United supporters, and we like to talk shop and give each other a hard time. So we'll have a lot to talk about no matter what on Monday. However,
the other interesting thing to point out, right? Players back or not, even the players that we've been using, this is the first time in I think 2.5 months that they've actually had a full rest. Well, they actually took
a week, yeah,
full week. So they had Monday and Tuesday off just to rest. Then they were back in training on Wednesday. So maybe that plays into it, right? We've actually had a full week of prep. Some of the players that are coming back obviously had a full week of training. So I don't know how it goes, but I want to enjoy watching us again. It's been really very difficult to do that.
Right. I can't really have fun. I just am on edge whenever I watch.
Yeah.
Graham, we took talking about atmosphere and people. There is a protest planned for this match, which we should probably mention because there's going to be a march to the stadium before the match. In the lead up, there's going to be a protest at the stadium before the match and after the match, but not during. So still support the team, but I think the process is very much at the ownership of the club, and the lack of investment in the team, and the fact that we haven't moved forward really in all the things that the stadium was supposed to bring us haven't really materialised.
And I will, as always, I sometimes be a bit of maybe to a fault, sometimes a defence of that, in that what the stadium hasn't brought us is obviously has been largely dependent on revenue streams that were hugely interrupted by a pandemic, but still noted. I think the investment in the squad could and should have been better. The recruitment could certainly have been better. But the thing with Levy and the ENIC leadership is they've backed themselves in a bit of a corner with this, haven't they? Because they've hired Ange, they've been very vocal about getting our Tottenham back, and now it hasn't gone really well, but you could argue because of the injuries and the absent players. But do they look a bit silly if they do make the change? And then the heat really ramps up, right? In terms of the.
But I think that's the point. And Ange isn't the change we need. What we needed was for him to have sufficient players of the right calibre at the start of the season, because we didn't have enough centre backs. There were other areas of the pitch we were light. We had a lot of young players. We moved on about 11 players in the summer through letting their contracts expire, selling them, or just generally like loan to sell. And we brought in 5 players, 3 of which were teenagers. So I think that's been a lot of the issue, is the depth of the squad. We might have had enough bodies, but the experience, once you get past the first 11, was quite low. It was inexperienced players. And I think that's really been a struggle all season, because we've relied on those players because of all the injuries so much.
A change in the top would not be a bad thing. It needs to happen, right? The ENIC have been around an awful long time, and it hasn't yielded the results that we all want. Hopefully it's a peaceful protest. I don't want to see things overspilling. I don't want to see frustration and anger turning violent. I don't think it will. But yeah, so Yoon and Ken, I mean, do you have much of a view on how we're run, like who we're run by? And there was some news, I think, floating around social media around a possible Qatari consortium coming in and buying us. I mean, where do you sit on new investment, how that comes, and getting Levy out? Like, where do you sit on that whole entity?
I think what you're trying to say is you really miss Højbjerg. And
well, actually, it's funny you should say that, but there's been games where we've been up this season that we've either lost or drawn, where having him on the bench to bring on to shore up a midfield would have been a smart thing to do. And instead we've had to bring on someone, teenagers, like literally school kids. So, but yeah.
Great. As far as the Qatari takeover kind of thing, I personally think, I mean, we're talking about I keep bringing it back to like the romance of Spurs. I think with the Pochettino era, it was like a source of pride that we didn't sign anybody this window, and we're still making,
built it, yeah.
But I think most of the fan base would rather see success than have, be in a relegation fight. And it's just the nature of the game these days. I think that's just the way that it's going right now.
Yeah, I hate it for it to always be boiling down to like money. But
unfortunately, that's modern football, right? It's very much the top 1% of clubs have probably 85% of the wealth, and they're able to use that to pick out the best players, and that gives them an advantage. And we're sat just below that. We have the revenue streams, but we don't spend it like an oligarch or a nation state because we just run much more like a business than a plaything, I guess I don't want to be a plaything either, but I feel like the balance between the income of the business and what gets put into the team isn't balanced. I think all of the money that the club's generating is going into real estate development around the stadium by building a hotel, and they've bought other land. they're now going to build and they're basically going to build a hospital because we have so many injuries. And I'm not even joking. They've got planning permission. So they bought this golf club, which is quite close to the training ground, which was defunct as a golf club, and they're going to have the women's training centre there, and also they're going to build an additional medical facilities. It's like a field hospital, but it's like an episode of MASH or something. But yeah, it's very weird. But I feel like there's infrastructure investment is never an issue for them. They always find money for infrastructure investment. But unfortunately, I
also argue that there's a viable return on infrastructure, right? Whereas players, not saying this right, but that's where their view is, and they're very much business people, not football people.
And that's the challenge for me, is that how do you balance the team on the pitch makes all the other stuff possible, right? But now I don't necessarily think that's the case. Someone said to me that the NFL games that they host at the stadium, what's that, 4 a season or something like that, is that they make as much money from those 4 matches as they take for a whole season of football, which is nuts.
Pretty wild.
I can only assume that's merchandise and beer, basically. There must be a lot of beer. I suppose it's a 4-hour game, right? That's 3.
Well, you can also take your beer to your seat, which makes a difference in terms of the purchasing.
3 hours of advert sport by an hour of football, right?
Wow. It must be a contract that let them drink during the
Let
game.
them drink.
No,
well,
for sure.
Because for all football, as in football, not soccer, as in football, not American football, I'm confusing myself now. You can't drink within sight of the pitch.
Yeah. Well,
but for the American football games, you can. So people are sat there drinking all the time.
Yeah. And I don't know that will ever change in football, our kind of football, where you can actually have a pint in the stadium. I don't think that will ever change. But just coming back to something Yoon said a few times, I really love that you have this affinity with Tottenham in that how we were building something, and it's almost like back then when Poch was there, and that era was like, there was a genuine connection to the fans as well, and what we were making young players better, and we were really, well, I say we were achieving things. We were playing good football, and we were in title races, and we were getting Champions League finals. We obviously didn't win anything, but it reminds me, going back a long, long way, which Graham will recall. No, that's not an old joke, by the way. There was a manager. The last time we made an FA Cup final in 1991, and there was a lot of uncertainty around the club's future. We had to sell 2 of our biggest assets, which was Gary Lineker and Paul Gascoigne. Paul Gascoigne probably the bigger one of the 2. But something that happened in that cup run, there was a genuine connection to the fans, and it felt like you were all in it together. And I was very young at the time, but I still remember that cup run, and that's the last time I can remember pre-Poch of feeling like a genuine connection. And I think we've got the manager at the moment that can try and do that. It's just a shame that we've had this really turbulent season. I want success, and I want it to be with Ange, but there we go.
It's weird, right? Because Ange usually has a really terrible first season, and then it all comes good in the second. But we've had a complete reversal of that, right? So first season, in the first 10 games, we did much better than we probably expected. And we had a bit of a blip, but we still finished, was it 5th? I think we finished.
5th, yeah.
And it was a good season. I think we can all, I guess we only had the league. We didn't have, and we went out quite early in both the cup competitions as well. So we only had that to focus on, and we still just about got over the line. This season, we've had a terrible run of fixtures. We've had injuries galore, and we've had significantly more matches to play because we've gone all the way to the semi-finals in the League Cup. We did two matches in the FA Cup. Let's not talk about that too much. And we've done 8 matches already in the Europa League, and with at least another 2 more to go. So we'll probably do somewhere around 50 matches this season, at least, which is a lot more than last season. Now, last season we did 41, I think it was.
But then, ironically, last season, Ange was complaining that we didn't have enough football. It was stop, start.
Yeah, well, when you got to keep 25-man squad happy, I guess it is a problem. when you've got half of them in the medical centre, it's not such an issue.
Yeah, no, indeed. Well, I certainly didn't have a lot else for today's episode. It's been really lovely to have Ken and Yoon on. Thank you for taking time in your afternoon to join us, guys. And happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I always like to close out with my one and true love of Tottenham Hotspur. So come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Thanks to everyone that's listened in. Please like and subscribe to the podcast to tickle the algorithm so we can get in front of more Tottenham supporters. And as everyone has said, come on, you Spurs.
Let me be the one that you turn